Discussion on PTSD in the military. We're joined via Skype by Dr. Harry Croft from San Antonio, Texas. He's a former U.S. Army doctor and the author of the PTSD help book, I Always Sit with My Back to the Wall. Dr. Croft, thank you for joining our program.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me, what is your reaction to Chris Kyle's brother saying PTSD is a real thing, definitely, but not every veteran has it just because they've been deployed? We don't put the D on it, he says, because it's not a disorder, it's a situation, you're stressed. How do you react to his words?
Well, there's several parts to that, Susan. In the first place, he's right. It is a result of life-threatening situations like those that occur in combat, but it only occurs in about 1 out of 5 combatants who have been in the combat zone. So it doesn't occur in everybody. It goes all the way from very mild to very severe in its impact. The issue of whether it's a disorder or not, it is still up for disagreement. I happen to believe it is a disorder because it interferes with and impacts a person's life.
Dr. Croft, in your estimation, if it was not PTSD, what do you believe the motive was behind Chris Kyle's killing?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because the headlines before the trial said that the defense was going to be not guilty by reason of insanity from PTSD. Now, what happened during the trial was we saw it wasn't PTSD that caused Eddie Lee Ralph to do this horrible, tragic act. It was rather psychosis, drug and alcohol abuse, perhaps even personality disorder problems, but not PTSD. And the reason I bring that up is I work with companies around the country here in America who want to hire vets, but often who are frightened about the fact that they might have PTSD. And this kind of headline, which is what I'm afraid will be remembered a year from now, people won't remember, it wasn't PTSD, that wasn't even brought up to the jury at the end of the trial. It was other things, but what might be remembered is PTSD equal dangerousness, which is not true.
So you feel like it's an inaccurate stigma that often goes with vets?
Exactly.
Tell us, after your time in the military as a doctor and the research for your book, I know you came in direct contact with over 7,000 vets for your book, I Always Sit with My Back to the Wall. How do you diagnose someone with PTSD, and how would you describe it to the layperson?
So PTSD is an understandable, in fact, a normal response to a very life-threatening situation that becomes prolonged and distorted and then begins to occur in situations where no threat exists. It has 4 clusters of symptoms. The first is called unwanted recall. That involves things like nightmares and flashbacks during the day and cues that make you think of the life-threatening event. The second part is avoidance. People with PTSD go out of their way to avoid thinking about it or coming into contact with anything that reminds them. The third cluster of symptoms involves difficulty with thoughts and emotions, so that people with PTSD may distance themselves with others and don't socialize and don't feel happy or joyful emotions. And the fourth cluster of symptoms is the one we mostly recognize, and that is increased arousal. That is, people jump and flinch and are easily startled. People are hypervigilant. They always look around, thinking danger is there, thus the title of our book, I Always Sit with My Back to the Wall. There's often irritability and anger, difficulty with concentration, and difficulty with sleep. And so those are the symptoms of PTSD, and those persist for months or years or a lifetime after the life-threatening situation is over. The good news is there is help available for PTSD.
Dr. Harry Croft, thank you so much for your time, your insight, and your reaction, joining us live from San Antonio, Texas.